I don't get it. Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be going through 5 books that did not live up to the hype for me. So there are going to be mild spoilers in this book, but basically it's just going to be me complaining about certain books. So before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more book videos. Okay, let's do this. Book number 1 is The Night Circus. This book is described as a magic duel to the death between lovers. Like, ooh, the premise was so intriguing. I was so excited to read this book, but the whole book was just confusing. I don't understand where the story was going. The timeline jumped around. I didn't think any of the side characters were intriguing. The 2 main characters were barely ever together. So when they did fall in love, I was like, when did this happen? We had no like times in this book where I believed that this should be happening. Suddenly in the story, they have this secret love and they can't be together because of this magic duel that they will have to participate in. But we're never given any clues to what their magic duel will be. So the whole time you're thinking it's going to be this grand finale that's going to be so dramatic, but then the ending just happened. It was so anticlimactic. There wasn't even a magic duel, and it just all worked out. And I feel like this whole book led to nothing. At the end, I was so disappointed because I felt like I was waiting for like this big grand thing to happen. And the book just like basically ends. And I was left being like, what was the point of this? Why did I read this book? Nothing was good about it. I mainly was so disappointed in it because it was so boring. And if you do want a book about a magic type circus, I would definitely recommend, instead of reading The Night Circus, that you should read the Harrow Fair series by Catherine Ann Kingsley, because that is like my favorite series of all time, and it's way better. Okay, the second book is The Midnight Library. This book, I am so annoyed every time I think of this book. Basically, the premise is Nora, our main character, kills herself, and then she goes into the Midnight Library where she gets to open different books of alternate lives to see if she would have taken different paths in her life, where she would have ended up. To be fair, I do think the idea for this book was awesome. I really had looked forward to reading it, but man, this book was a struggle to get through. I found the writing to be incredibly dry and boring. Nora, the main character, had no personality. I had a very hard time accepting that in her alternative lives that she had visited, like her main ones, that she was this wildly successful person. Like she was a rock star and an Olympian, but then in each of these lives, something terrible had happened, different terrible things that made her end up being super unhappy in each of these lives. And so much of the book was focused on these great grand lives that she could have lived. And then like at some point the author just starts listing out like a couple of pages worth of all of these kind of like more smaller insignificant lives, like kind of as an afterthought, where it's like, oh, and then also this, she could have lived like this and could have lived like this too. But you know, the big thing being is she could have been a rock star. She could have been an Olympian. And it's like, could she have really? Also with this author's writing, I feel like he kept trying to be so philosophical and so deep throughout the whole book, but it just felt so cheap. It felt like he was basically just copying and pasting inspirational quotes and putting it into the book and trying to make it work. And it read like a self-help book, and I hate self-help books. This book was a joke. And in the end, all Nora needed was to gain this better perspective, and she realized that her original life wasn't miserable at all. Like, no, fuck off, Midnight Library. The third book is Anxious People. I think that Frederick Backman just isn't the author for me. I just really don't like his storytelling. This book is about a group of strangers in this hostage situation with a person who has attempted to rob a cashless bank. The story jumps around a lot between flashbacks and police interviews and the time in the apartment where they're being held hostage, and their lives before the hostage part and their lives after the hostage part. And the author just kept doing so many of these like bait and switches with the characters in the story and how they were connected. And we kept learning these like truths from the story. And by partway through, I had to learn to just expect there to be some sort of twist, or at some point we would learn that something would happen and this would change everything. And so whenever he would do one of these bait and switches, I would be super underwhelmed because I was like, yeah, that seems to be all you do. Like you keep being like, oh, and then this is different. Oh, guess what? This is different too. He really needed to calm down with the bait and switches because there just ended up being too many to where you kept reading them and you're like, here we go again. There's something new that we need to learn. Like, oh, something that we thought was something is something different. It just got so old. Also, with this one, there were so many characters in this book, and we kept jumping storylines so much that I felt like it was impossible to connect with any of the characters or to care about any of them, because as soon as you would start diving into one of the characters, you would switch to another one. So by the time you eventually like worked your way back to character A that you were like interested in originally, you had already forgotten their backstory and you're reading them and it's like, wait, who are you? And it's like, why do I care about you again? Why am I reading this book? I just thought it was terrible. My next one is The Guest List. Ugh. This one is a thriller about people who have gone to this remote island for a wedding and there's a killer on the island. Fucking no one said how much of this book would be about the wedding. I was so annoyed. It was all wedding talk seemingly the whole time. And I hate this book. It made me realize how much I hate books about weddings. I'm very bitter about this book. I feel like anytime it comes up when I'm reading a synopsis of a different book about weddings, I'm like, that makes me think of The Guest List, and I hate The Guest List. I can't read books about weddings because The Guest List ruined it and made me so annoyed the whole time. I hated everything about it. Every single character was trash and they were whiny and they all had these like long laundry list of issues. And this whole book was basically just alternating between like 5-ish characters who thought ill of everyone around them and they were fake to everyone's faces. None of the characters were enjoyable to read at all. Then at the end, I'm about to reveal who the killer was. It was this extreme random staff side character who would have their own chapters from their point of view when you had chapters from main characters, and then this random side character also had chapters. So at the end when you find out they're the killer, it's like, well, yeah, that makes sense, because why else would they have had chapters with their point of view if they didn't have something to do with the story, like them being the murderer? Like, that wasn't a grand reveal to me. And then the book just ended and it was over and I was like, thank God it's over. But at the same time, I was like, why did I just waste my time reading that? Now, to be fair, with this last book, I can see where people like it, unlike kind of with the other ones. But for me, I was expecting so much more, I think, because so many people like it. So that's The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I had such high hopes for this book. And to be fair, it was really well written. It was fundamentally a good book. I just don't think it's as amazing as everybody says. So this book was about Evelyn Hugo, who was a famous movie star who was married 7 times. And now she's tricked this writer to come over to her house to record her life story for a book where she's going to finally reveal the truth about everything in her life that has happened. I personally did not like the framework of how this story was told. I didn't like the intermixing between having Monique, the writer, being like, I don't know why Evelyn has picked me to tell me her story, and like kind of like seeing small tidbits from her life. Like, I didn't think that was necessary. And to me, it was like obvious that Evelyn had some sort of secret or like sinister reason to why she chose Monique. I was just kind of like, yeah, I know they're going to be connected somehow. I just felt like that storytelling structure was unnecessary. And every time we would like cut away from Evelyn's story to hear more about Monique, I'd be like, I don't care about Monique. I just feel like it would have been better if it was just a story about Evelyn and she would have written it kind of like as a biography of like this fake character without mixing in Monique. And in the end, you find out that Monique's dad was a lover of one of Evelyn's husbands, who was also her friend, and they had died in a drunk driving accident. And when Evelyn's friend was driving, so Evelyn felt guilty about it basically all these years. I just feel like that was so unnecessary. But then also, if the book was specifically kind of like a story just about Evelyn without like the whole Monique side part, I don't know if I also would have liked it. Just kind of going through all of like the Hollywood stuff, I found like, I just don't care. Like, I don't care about Hollywood or like the glamour of celebrities. It was weird for me that everybody in the book was still obsessed with learning about this celebrity who was famous like only between the years of like 1950 and 1980. Like, I just don't understand like why people would care about her all of these decades later and like care about her life and like care about why she had 7 husbands and everything. Like, I just am like, why does everybody care so much? I did think it was interesting that throughout having these 7 husbands, a lot of them were kind of just like a ploy, and you found out that she wasn't actually like with them for like a genuine reason, and some of them were to cover up the fact that her true love was one of her, a fellow actor, Celia. Like, I liked the idea for where the story was going, but I didn't feel like their relationship was fleshed out enough. I wanted to be obsessed with them together, but I feel like the author just kept telling me that they loved each other so much, but I don't feel like the author ever kind of like really showed me why they loved each other so much. And I wanted to feel their connection, like I said before. Like, I wanted them, I just wanted more from that relationship, but I don't feel like it actually like gave me what I was looking for, which was a bummer because I was really looking forward to that one. Actually, with all of these ones, like, I feel like they're all kind of bummers that they didn't quite work out, because these are all books that I have heard good things about and I was really looking forward to reading them. And I think that almost makes it worse when you have these books are like, you know, hyped up so much, and so you have such high expectations when you go into reading them. And so then when you read them and you don't like them and they kind of fall flat, it makes it so much worse because your expectations were so high. It is what it is. Not every book that you read is going to be an instant like, oh my gosh, I love it, even though I wish they all were. So I desperately just needed to get my thoughts on a few of those things off my chest. So thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye!